Transport Minister Sindisiwe Chikunga has warned against drunk driving during the upcoming Christmas long weekend. Chikunga says there'll be zero tolerance for drunk driving as it's the main cause of the majority of road crashes. Traffic volumes are set to peak as thousands of people travel to different destinations. Minister Chikunga joins me now. Minister, a very good morning to you. Welcome to Newzroom Afrika. Thank you for your time. Let's talk a little bit about some of your observations on the roads during the festive season. I understand that long weekends have been quite problematic.
Good morning to you and good morning to your viewers. Indeed, we've had very hectic long weekend, the past one. We're expecting this very, very long weekend that starts on Saturday, Sunday, Monday up to Tuesday to be hectic again, because many people on Friday, tomorrow, including today, they will be traveling from whatever part of South Africa to different destinations. Particularly, many will be driving to coastal provinces. And we actually have alerted coastal provinces that they must put in place plans to ensure that the people that they will be receiving, because many of them will be tourists and they need them for the growth of their economies, but to ensure that they are safe. And they have actually responded. We've had interaction with some of them, and we do have a chat group through which we are interacting with MECs together with the ministry. But of course, as you have actually asked, what we have seen during the past weekend is the number of festivities and people attending, binging and drinking, and not respecting that part of road rule that you can't drive a car when you have had alcohol, when you know you are not sober, when you know that you are drunk. And many accidents as a result happened in residential areas as compared to our main roads, such as our national roads or provincial roads. And that is why we are extremely concerned about this coming weekend. And that is why we are happy to have such opportunities and interviews, so that again we say to people of South Africa, as you plan to visit whoever, be it a wedding, attending it, or anything for that matter, but that plan must include the driver who will be driving you, who will be sober at the time when everything is done and you have got to go back to your home.
Yeah. Minister, the other big challenge is around trucks, which lead to a surge in accidents. I mean, there's been a lot of concern and focus around their complaints on how there are way too many trucks on the roads, bearing in mind that roads weren't even designed for such level of heavy traffic volumes. What are you doing to now reduce the heavy dependence on road transport, because it all points to severe deterioration of the country's railway network?
In fact, in the State of the Nation address, President Ramaphosa said we're going to develop the freight logistic roadmap. And we actually have done that. It has been adopted by Cabinet together with the implementation plan. And that roadmap is actually calling on South Africa to separate infrastructure from operations, which for now we have got both Transnet being the infrastructure owner, therefore the landlord, but also being the operator through using its trains. What the roadmap is calling upon is that, yes, infrastructure must remain with the state and therefore owned, and we need therefore to establish the infrastructure manager, which will be an equivalent of SANRAL, for instance, in the road sector, an equivalent of AXA in the aviation sector, that will own the rail infrastructure. But then everyone else who owns a train and has the permit to operate must then be given that opportunity, which will then say you're going to have state-owned trains being operated, but also privately owned state being operated, so that all of them can be given slots to operate, to use for operations. And we already have the interim structure that is looking into that, because we have the legislation that is in Parliament that establishes the transport economic regulator. But as we await that, we appointed an interim structure, which we signed an MOU between ourselves and the Department of Public Enterprises. And that interim structure is doing some good job on how we're going to allocate slots, on how we're going to ensure access, on how we're going to fund, in fact, set tariffs for the operators. So there is a lot of work that has gone into that, which we are ready to take to even the National Logistic Crisis Committee and to President to say this is what we think should happen going forward. Yeah. And that therefore will mean that the freight or the rail-friendly cargo, such as coal, will be moved for once and for all from road to rail. Because I agree with you, the trucks that are on the road, the trucks that are between Durban and Gauteng on the N3, they are too much for any country to can be able to keep up with.
Yeah. The outcome of those projects will be very crucial, Minister, more so as Stats SA's latest transport survey has shown how rail as a means of public transport has declined, over the last 10 years, which has in turn increased the reliance on road transportation. And bearing in mind the impact of grand-scale corruption at PRASA, how are you trying to increase the drastic drop in passenger numbers? Does the country have enough rail infrastructure to meet the growing population? You speak about anyone who has a train to really hop on board and become and become part of the project. But looking at the rail infrastructure itself, is it enough to meet the growing population?
I think PRASA has actually improved. I think we need to commend PRASA for the improvement. Quite a number of corridors have actually been recovered to the extent that there are already corridors that are in operation. And as I have said in the past, PRASA owns about 44 corridors. Of those, by the end of this financial year, it will have recovered more than 30 of those. And many of them, they have trains being deployed. Remember, we are manufacturing trains, these blue trains that are beautiful, that we are manufacturing here in South Africa through Gibela project. But also we are revitalizing our old trains through a project known as GO, which is General Overhaul of those trains that actually make them look new to the extent that we can still use them as South Africa, but we can also sell them to the neighboring countries as second-hand trains. So there is a lot of good job that is happening there. You will remember, you will also know that during the festive season, as a way of relieving our roads, PRASA ensured that the long-distance trains start to operate. We already have the operations between Johannesburg and Durban, between Johannesburg and Cape Town, and of course, just 70 kilometers to Cape Town, there was vandalism that had actually happened, but PRASA was also ready to provide buses just for that distance that was remaining. And the passengers were very happy with the establishment and recovery of those mainline passenger trains, including Johannesburg to Musina. So yes, there is a lot of good job that is happening so that the passenger trains are moving. We have said to PRASA they've got to speed up the installation of signaling, because even when you move trains using manual systems, then you can't move as many trains as you'd want. But with the signaling, and there are already projects that have been completed, there are projects that are ready to commence, and of course that there are projects that are at design stage. And that will actually mean that we are bringing back trains. The numbers are increasing, revenue is increasing, and the number of trains that we are deploying are increasing. And therefore there is some good job that is actually happening. And I just really want to say that even the board of PRASA that were appointed in the past and that we have appointed, they know exactly that they've got to deal with issues of corruption, which they've dealt with, but they continue to deal with, including those that are raised by the Auditor General.
Yeah. In revitalizing the old corridors, train line vandalism, cable theft and blockages at ports, Minister, these are some serious matters which have throttled crucial commodity exports in the country. What's your take on that, especially looking at the threats of jobs and hitting badly needed tax revenues?
With regards to the ports, you'll know for sure that for now, ports are a responsibility of DPE. However, we are a policy department. And that is why the roadmap that we are talking about includes the ports themselves. So that even in ports, we don't have the referee and the player. We don't have the infrastructure owner being the operator as well. We don't have a situation where rail services in our ports are not effective and efficient because the rail, they form part of our ports. So this is one other matter that we're taking care of through the roadmap. But of course, even Transnet has come up with its own program that is ensuring some efficient working of our ports. And the ports will therefore, they are part of our priority, not only as a Department of Transport, as the policy department, but also the Department of Public Enterprises led by Minister Pravin Gordhan, but also led by Transnet. So these measures that we are talking about, separating infrastructure from operations, they apply on the freight rail, but they also apply at our ports. And we believe that they are going to bring what at least we see in our aviation ports, for instance, in our international ports, because there we don't have problems because AXA owns infrastructure. It owns airports. But operators, they are either privately owned or they are government owned. It's the same thing on the road. Sanral owns our national roads. But all of us can operate on those roads. All that we do, if it is on the toll road, we pay the toll. If it is paying for registration of the car, we do that. But then we are all able to operate on the road. This is the model that we want to bring to our freight rail system, but our ports as well, because it is a model that is not working elsewhere, but it's a model that is working in South Africa. And no one can say, for instance, aviation is privately owned, because our ports are owned by the state through AXA. And that is what we would want to see happening at our ports. That is what we want to see at our freight rail services where the infrastructure is owned. How then do you fund that? It's a matter of discussion. For instance, in the road sector, we have had concessions with the private sector over time. Whether that is the model for some of the rail infrastructure or government will have money to fund that, that's a matter that is put on the table that we are discussing and looking into. But also the IREC is doing some study benchmarking with other countries as to how they are funding their rail. But the fact of the matter is, it's a matter that is urgent. It's a matter that requires us to act not tomorrow, but to act yesterday.
Yeah. You've also got another challenge on your hands. In fact, a legal one, Minister, which needs you to account. You're among those ministers asked to explain your failure to implement court orders relating to Intercape, who've been calling for intervention as buses come under attack by armed taxi operators. Your department being accused of being missing in action. What's your reaction to this latest court outcome?
We actually did submit our plan to court. It may as well be that maybe it was late, but we did submit our plan. I just want to emphasize this point, that as the Department of Transport, we are responsible for safety and not for security. But however, we work together with the Minister of Transport, particularly on this one case. The difficulty about this is that the plan, whether it is an implementable plan or not, I don't know. Because it will be very difficult for any department, for instance, to say I'm providing safety and security just to this specific company, when there are so many other bus companies that are operating, when there are so many other small bus companies that are operating, when there are so many taxis that are operating, when there are so many trucks that are operating. And therefore, we've got to provide the same services to all of them, but to private road users as well. So yes, we have submitted. but there are surely difficulties in as far as that. MEC Shongwe is correct to say, as there is an expectation from government to provide services to all road users, but there is also an expectation from owners to ensure that their buses, their taxis, their everything are safe, but also they are secured when there is such a need. Of course, in an event where somebody is actually committing crime, there are steps to be taken, including opening cases, but of course including using the National Land Transport Act, where the matter, if there is evidence, is reported to the MEC. The MEC, in dealing with, say for instance, the allegations that the taxi industry is involved, then the MEC can look into that and decide to even suspend the operating licenses for those taxi people if they continue to do the wrong thing. But
Minister,
I just want to say,
pardon me, Minister. Let me please interrupt you there, if you'll allow me. You say there are so many bus companies and so many incidents. This specific bus company has had 176 attacks and 50 million rand in damages. Are you saying that because there are so many other companies that perhaps have not been attacked in this manner, that this matter should not have been escalated to this front?
As a matter of fact, it's a matter that we are taking care of. I'm not saying we're not taking care of it. We're taking care of it. But it will be difficult to say for each Intercape bus, there will be a traffic officer accompanying it, because there are many of them for that matter. And they operate throughout the country. So we will provide security, we will provide, as the police, we will ensure that they are safe as the Department of Police, as we do with others. But they are all over South Africa, and if we are to provide a traffic officer for each one of them, that will actually mean that we remove all our traffic officers. And that is why we are saying it's a combination of measures that must be put in place, themselves playing their role and ourselves playing our role in ensuring that there is safety, because it is in our interest that they continue to operate, that they also report these matters following even the National Land Transport Act, and with evidence put before us, so that then the MEC or the Minister of Transport, for that matter, can actually take action when such is presented to them. Maybe then going to court, because then when you go to court, then it says we must provide the measures. Yes, we are. We are trying to comply, but it is not easy, as it is said, that we are going to provide a traffic officer, a vehicle for each bus that belongs to Intercape. And as a matter of fact, other bus companies are reporting such, and we are dealing with those issues as and when they come, but also we're dealing with them as road users and expected to provide services for all road users.
Very well, Minister. Thank you so much for your time. We're going to have to leave it there for now.